Parliament, the Duma, have to ratify it first. Republican Senator Orrin Hatch serves on the Intelligence Committee and joins us now. Senator, a lot going on these days. I wanted to ask you first about today's developments and the ratification. Do you think that this will be ratified? It's strongly supported by the ranking Republican on the Foreign Service Committee, Foreign Relations Committee, Dick Lugar.
Well, I think we're going to have to look and see what it says. You know, I don't think anybody knows what it says right now. But once we look at it, naturally, a lot of us would like to have arms control and have it work.
Do you think from the run-up to this that it did eliminate the chance that the Russians were hoping for of getting missile defense off the table? So it deals with the reduction in strategic warheads, but not what the Russians really were holding out for. Does it take a step that you think is a hopeful step?
Well, keep in mind, this is something we're going to have to look at very, very carefully. Most people don't know what's in it right now, and it's going to have to be evaluated very well. But I think almost everybody would like to move forward in arms control, and especially with the Russians, because we're the two big powers that have the most nuclear weapons on board. So, you know, we've got to keep an open mind, and we also have to look at it very carefully and make sure that our country is protected, because the whole world depends upon a good and strong America.
I wanted to ask you about health care. You've been one of the leading critics not only of the overhaul, but also the constitutionality. We have more than a dozen state attorneys general now trying to challenge the legality of the individual mandate. Do you think that they have a legal case here?
I really do. In other words, this is a situation where you know, for the first time in the history of our country, the government can tell you what you have to buy, even if you don't want to buy it. And that is a reduction in liberty that really has to be fought. And I really believe that these states attorneys generals who are fighting this are on the side of the people in doing so. Some think it's a close question. It may be, but the fact is, we cannot permit government to erode liberties to the extent that they can just tell us what we have to buy. If that's so, I've made the point, why have a cash for clunkers bill? Just have the government tell us what kind of Chevy we got to buy or what kind of car we got to buy. Nobody in this country is going to want to see that. And I personally think there's a limit to how far you can go under, under Article 1 of the Constitution. And this is going way, way too far.
Now, it was first proposed, or one of the earlier proposals along these lines was in 1993 when you and other Republicans came up with counter offers to the Clinton White House, and the individual mandate was perfectly acceptable to Republicans back then.
Well, it really wasn't. We were fighting Hillary care at that time, and I don't think anybody centered on it. I certainly didn't. That was 17 years ago. But since then, and with the advent of this particular bill and really seeing how much they're depending on an unconstitutional approach to it, yeah, naturally I got into it on this issue. And by the way, the president himself was against these job-killing mandates when he was debating Hillary Clinton during the campaign. Now, he was against them because he thought they would cost too much money, and he's right about that too. But I'm against them because they erode liberty and take away the rights of individual citizens, and we just we just shouldn't do that. Plus, it's a very, very expensive way to do business.
I also want to ask you, on a day when Sarah Palin is campaigning to try to save John McCain against a strong challenge from J.D. Hayworth in Arizona, in Utah, your fellow Senator Bob Bennett, a veteran senator with a great deal of accomplishment on his side, is also being chased by the anti-incumbent tide. And he said, to the New York Times, if the anti-incumbent tide is as strong as some people think it is, I will be swept out despite all my efforts. If the anti-incumbent tide is a lot of conversation but has no center of gravity as a true political movement, then I'll be just fine. There's just no way to know. What is going on out there in Utah?
Well, he is fighting back at this particular point, and I think doing a very good job. I suspect that Bob will probably have a primary, but hopefully he'll be able to at least get through the convention and then go to work on the primary. He's an excellent senator. He's got a great deal of experience. Will become the top Republican on the banking committee, which is a very, very important thing to Utah and to the country at large. And I think most people back here think he's an excellent senator who should be reelected. I know even Democrats have come up to me and said, gee, what's happening to Bob? And you know, they're basically, even they realize that he would be a good person to keep in the United States Senate. But it's a tough process. We have to go through it. I've gone through it twice now in the last 2 times and have been able to make it through, but it's not easy.
Not easy being an incumbent and all the things you have to face. Now, you guys have obviously finished health care. The recess begins. Are you off, I hope, for a holiday break and go back and face those voters?
Well, I know I'm going to have town meetings back there, and you know, I remember the last one we had just a few weeks ago, around 500 people showed up, and there were probably 10 to 25 who, no matter what I said, were going to be against whatever I'm for or against me. The rest of them were just angry. They're really angry at what's happening. Just think about it. You know, when this president took over, the national debt was $6.3 trillion. That's about $56,000 for each family in this country. Today, it's $8.2 trillion, and that comes to about $77,000 per family debt. And by year 2020, it's going to be $20 trillion, and that basically is going to be up to $170,000 per family. We're actually going into such debt with what this administration is doing that we've got to stop it. By the year 2020, according to the president's own budget, the debt will be 90% of our GDP. We can't remain a great country and do this. How are we going to pay for this health care bill? That's what people are asking. That's why 62% of the people in this country want us to fight it with everything we've got, even though it's passed.
Well, we're out of time, and Tamron Hall will take over now. Thank you, Senator.
Nice
this is MSNBC.